Jax bot lane, a champion that truly fits this role. This is Vitor Belfort, a challenger player playing Jax AD carry. This champion is incredible in bot lane, dodging auto attacks and jumping on AD carries, outmatching their damage. But this guy is a bit more special. He sent me the best rank up screenshot I've ever seen. There is his challenger rank, and there is his wall. Of course I had to get the story of what happened, but that is not all. This Jax also goes for an assassin ZHONYAS build, letting him jump into fights, pop a carry with his great AD and AP scaling, and then ZHONYAS to stay alive, playing more like a Fizz than a Jax. Also having a new tool to 1v1 top laners in the side lane even when he's behind in levels. This pick has DPS, it has burst, it has mobility and playmaking. It has everything you need to be a perfect AD carry. But first, today I went to MSI and I saw a Korean mid laner do unspeakable things to a European team. Immediately I knew I'll never be that good without help. So I logged into League and made sure I had Porofessor installed. Imagine a Korean challenger coach sitting next to you giving you perfect information. That is Porofessor, a companion app that helps you rank up, and they are sponsoring this video. Starting in Champ Select, Porofessor automatically selects the best runes taken from high elo games, making sure you never have to play Press the Attack Anivia again. Then in-game, just like a coach, it scouts your opponents and shows you their weaknesses. On top of that, Porofessor has jungle timers to help you avoid ganks, or become a better jungler, and best of all, summoner spell tracking. Whenever someone flashes, click the box and an automatic timer will start. All of this is completely approved by Riot and used by over 9.5 million other players. And best of all, it's completely free, so you can download it now from my link in the description, and start ranking up right away. Back to our Jax, better known as AIROHE, a name that some people might recognise. His League journey started in 2010 during the beta at the age of 7 years old. On his birthday, his brother got him the worst present anyone could ask for, League of Legends. But funnily, he wasn't interested in it at that time, instead spending his days on other games, mostly H1Z1, one of the first battle royales. He became one of the best players in the country and won some major tournaments. And then again, before coming back to League, he played Apex Legends, again becoming a top 100 player and a tournament favourite. That was until season 10, when AIROHE developed some pretty bad wrist pain due to gaming, and this forced him out of top level competition, so instead he wanted a chill experience to give his wrist some rest. For some reason, he chose League of Legends, picking it back up. And after playing 500 games that year, wrist pain or not, he was not stopping, hitting Diamond 4 in Season 11, and then he credits hitting Master in Season 12 for the first time, actually thanks to our tank Kog'Maw build, and after rushing straight to Grandmaster. And this is where we get to his Challenger screenshot. Like most people, he doesn't enjoy when he is underperforming. It's one thing for your teammates to mess up, but when you know you could have played better and you don't, to him that feeling is even worse. Clearly he admits he had some anger issues, punching his wall after making mistakes, then even plastering over the wall and doing the same thing again. It's actually nuts. But the turning point came when he did something worse, breaking his second monitor. Unlike most people, he realised he wasn't actually mad at his teammates or other players. He was doing all of this because he was mad at himself. He realised he was the only thing holding himself back from getting Challenger, so instead of grinding more, he stepped away from League to focus on improving his mental health. Therapy, exercise, eating better, more sleep, something everyone should do. And at the cost of his wall and his second monitor, his life really changed, turning his anger into motivation, and he hit Challenger in Season 13, with his wall and his monitor there as constant reminders to prioritise himself. And this is where Jax AD carry comes in. After he hit Challenger with top lane, he didn't want to keep grinding and fall into that same trap. He wanted a new exciting challenge to motivate him. Since he came from an FPS background, he wanted something that could 1v9 games. Jax fit that great, and similarly, the AD carry role fit that much better than the island that is top lane. The reason this pick works is that currently and for the next few months we're going to be in an AD carry focus meta. Jax is able to shut down AD carries before they can become a carry, putting them as far behind as possible, and you can see this straight from level 1, where Jax is already looking for a cheese play to get ahead. If he has a strong early game support, he loves going for a level 1 bush camp, and trying to take away enemy summoner spells. It's way better for Jax if he flashes and it gets traded, as he always has Q to jump onto the enemy to engage. But without flash, many AD carries won't have an escape. Buying Doran Shield, Jax AD carry is all about staying high health and avoiding poke. If enemies misstep, he can press E and look for a fast trade, again trying to draw out enemy summoners. As with lethal tempo, his damage ramps up very fast. Level 2 Jax takes his Q. His goal is to play slow and wait for level 3, where he takes his W, and here he becomes probably one of the strongest bot laners in the whole game. He now unlocks his trade combo and does lots of short trades, using his E dodge to prevent the enemy AD carry from returning damage. While this is active, he Qs forwards onto the enemy and uses W and auto attacks, trading and stunning and then running out. This is a very hard trade for enemies to respond to, as they can't hit you during your E, and they end the trade stunned, unable to chase you. Jax only needs to get them down to below 70% health, and then he knows he can go for an all-in. At this stage, Jax can win any 2 vs 2, as he has Exhaust Flash, on top of his damage, CC and mobility. If he can reach an enemy, he can stick on them, slowing them and following any dashes they use with his flash. So to set these fights up, he wants to freeze the wave in front of his tower, making sure enemies have to walk up to him, giving him the chance to jump in. Here we get to the very special thing about JAX bot lane. In this lane, you should pretty much never risk fighting inside a big wave, as it just gives your opponents a huge damage advantage. But one great thing about JAX E is that it blocks minion attacks as well, so JAX can press E and jump into a huge wave. The enemy AD carry thinks they're safe, as there are so many minions around, but JAX isn't tanking any of them, and once JAX lands a stun, his support can easily follow up with a CC of their own, not needing to hit a long range skill shot. JAX is really the setup in this lane, making your support's job very simple. Of course, some support players can still somehow miss, but this play can work anyway, even against these really good players. Even against tank supports, our player just doesn't care about them. When he gets hooked, that's really just a gap closer to get closer to their AD carry. He's happier to flash forwards into a fight than he is to flash away to safety. If he is on top of an AD carry, they won't be able to beat him. The champion is also quite risky to gank, taking lethal tempo and ideally playing with a tank support. JAX buys time to stack his rune, and once his cooldowns are back up, he can deal serious damage, especially with his AoE stun. One thing AD carries often have is a lot of damage, but they can die before they can get to use it. JAX has the same high damage but with none of the downsides. He has tankiness, he has mobility, and the safety from his E. At level 6, JAX gets even better. Sure, he gets extra damage from his ultimate as well as burst, but he also gets lots of resistances, turning him into one of the strongest champions on the bottom side of the map. His ult now deals 150 damage, but it also gives 27 armor and 16 magic resist if you can hit a champion with it. This increases even more if you hit multiple champions with it. So in bot lane, especially in a 3 vs 3 or in a dragon fight, with a good ult, JAX can get 63 extra armor, more than doubling the armor he already has. So AD carries just won't do any damage to him. This ability is so much better in 2v2 bot lanes, way better than top lane, and the same if you're against a magic damage support. You'll have so much magic resist, they're not really going to do anything to you. Although JAX is meant to be a scaling pick, he's already so strong from the start of the game. So next our player wants to shove wave and look for a dragon fight, knowing he is the one who can carry it easily. Or alternatively, one play he loves doing is staying out of vision, pretending to base, then sneaking into this bush and looking for a kill. On a normal AD carry this is risky, but JAX can easily win a 1 vs 1, so it's a really simple play to look for. The one huge risk to look out for in lane according to our player is that if enemies flash your E damage, then they should win the fight. So it's very important to track the enemy's flash timers so you can respond instantly with your flash and react to it. This guy's obviously Challenger, so he's really good at that by himself, but for the rest of us we have Professor to do that automatically. Download link below. If enemies are refusing to fight you in bot lane, our player's best idea is to go for a stacked wave into a dive. His support takes aggro while he looks for the kills. JAX is great at killing tower as well as plates thanks to his passive gaining ramping attack speed and his W being an auto attack reset, so anytime he gets a kill he gets really rewarded for it. JAX now buys a strange first item, Ravenous HYDRA. Usually Sundera is an unbeatable first item on JAX, but our player has a different goal. In mid game, AD carries usually go mid and start taking all of the farm, using their range to take mid tower. JAX AD carry is completely different. Our player instead knows the power of split pushing on this champion and prefers to leave mid to his mid laner, letting them safely farm and wave clear to keep the tower alive. He wants to slow the game down, not take any huge fights, and lower the risk of throwing his lead. Now usually, split pushing on an AD carry is an easy way to die since you're behind in levels. Here we see the JAX AD carry split pushing, a decision that would usually be terrible on this role. So as usual, the 2-item enemy jungler collapses, but this time instead of instantly one-shotting the AD carry, JAX uses exhaust, counter-strikes and fights back, surviving the burst and having the damage and mobility to actually catch Echo again. The enemy jungler wants to take this fight, but JAX is the one who wins it. This exhaust is vital as it lets him match enemies who would usually beat him, so even down in levels against the enemy top laner, Jax can win it. Most people won't expect to lose this 1 vs 1 as they'd so easily win it against a Jax if he was this behind in top lane, but with the summoner spell added to his skill level, he's able to outplay and win the fight, easily baiting people into these 1v1s. Jax can then use this pressure and the Ravenous HYDRA to shove the wave, to quickly force a tier 2 tower and collect even more gold. By this stage, Jax will get Sunderer as well, but then our player does something very unique, buying ZHONYAS. You don't have to complete the whole item for this to be useful on AD carry Jax, just a stopwatch is enough. However, his W, E and ultimate all have AP scaling, so he's not losing anything when buying this amazing stasis item. With it, he wants to become his team's main engage, jumping in and using flash to get onto a fed priority target, using E, W and autos to one-shot them, and then using ZHONYAS to stall. With this build and ZHONYAS, Jax can blow all of his abilities, and then go golden to avoid any damage. By the time he is out, his cooldowns will be back up again, letting him dodge even more damage and combo someone. Suddenly this champion is more like playing Fizz, with a dodge ability and ZHONYAS to buy time. Jax is even harder to shut down than usual, with AD carries unable to really even hit him. He thrives against squishies and with dive champions on his team to jump in together. I've never seen so many fights where enemies are jumped on by his whole team and immediately the fight is over. AD carries live for fights where they're able to 1v5 outplay, but Jax AD carry does this as soon as he enters the fight, using his E outplay button, popping a target and the enemies know the fight is done for immediately, just auto-attacking to clean up afterwards. However, off-meta bot laners are notorious for having one big problem, and that is low DPS. And every time we find one of their main weaknesses is that their Baron take is much worse than a meta AD carry. But Jax, however, is the opposite. His DPS on objectives is great, still able to rush objectives and provide the DPS this role requires. And ideally he wouldn't, but he can even tank it for his team thanks to Ravenous HYDRA. Late game, Jax is Jax, whatever role he's playing. He wins 1v1s in a side lane, especially after he buys Sojin, enabling to only walk up when his E is available, pretty much making auto attacks useless against this champion. The biggest problem with Jax AD carry is the long range matchups. He bans Caitlyn every game as she can auto him from full safety, also having great peel in her kit. Alongside this, he asks his team to ban Draven, another pick that can counter you with his E knockback interrupting your Q. He does have some very easy matchups against low CC and low mobility champions, but other picks like Vayne, Xayah or Ziggs are hard matchups as well, as they can farm and avoid you with pretty low risk, meaning it's quite hard to punish them. But our player says that still, even in these matchups, there will be openings. He plays safe and waits for his chance to appear. Either his support will hit a CC, or the enemies will start a fight, use their important abilities, and then Jax can counter-engage. These openings will be even more common in lower elos, making this pick even more viable. Overall, this pick is really good. Really, this guy could probably hit Challenger with any champion, but I still think he's found something special. Like most off-meta bot laners, it has the tankiness that counters AD carries, but this one also has the scaling to actually provide what an AD carry should provide for their team, DPS. Also having really good CC. The main downside is this pick is slightly harder than Mundo AD carry, for example. It has more counters and it requires more gold, so if you're behind then Jax will be less useful. But the reward is also higher if you can play the lane well. It's a very similar champion to Nilah. If she has a problem then Jax AD carry will have the same one, except Jax's ultimate is a lot more selfish than hers, making him much safer in fights, especially with this ZHONYAS build. For his full AD carry build, always start Doran Shield for the safety in lane. You have enough damage just from your abilities, so you don't really need any more. Into his unique Ravenous, Divine, ZHONYAS build, with tank boots to fit the game he's in, and then choosing between Sojin or Black Cleaver, depending on how much gold he gets. Finishing the build with Hex Drinker, Force of Nature, Death Dance or Frozen Heart, the best tank bruiser items right now. His runes are always the same, DPS based with cookies and free boots, to give him a gold and sustain advantage to even up the harder lanes. Our player has nothing to promote, which is probably a good thing, as a Jax AD carry streamer may be a bit too dangerous of a combination. So instead, please check out our sponsor Porofessor, and automatically get this Jax build in your in-game shop, as well as a ton of other features that make the game much more satisfying to play. Link in the description. Thanks so much for watching.